Hey, thanks for joining me. I wanted to show you a way to automate refreshing a SQL database. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Ken Ray. I'm a Pure Storage SE here in St. Louis. And I wanted to show you real quick how to leverage our SQL Server Management Studio extension that we've created in order to create application consistent backup copies and application consistent snapshots on the array, and then actually be able to automate leveraging those snapshots and refreshing a database. I've created another video that kind of shows you a good deal about how to set this up. So this one's geared more towards how to leverage PowerShell in order to instantiate these and to actually create a script that will refresh a database. So in this environment, I've just downloaded our Pure Storage Flash Array extension for SQL Server Management Studio. And on our support side here, we've got all the details about the overview of how this works with some screenshots and some detailed user guides that you can go through on how you can set this up and how to go about configuring it for its use. But also we've got the download here. So you can come in and actually download this zip file. It is an MSI installer, and you just install it on the server or the host that you've got SQL Server Studio installed on. So on this host here, I've got SQL Server Management Studio. I've already gotten the extension from Pure Storage installed, and the way I can tell is if I click here, I can see the Pure Storage menu item, and if I right click on one of the databases, I can also see that I've got the Pure Storage menu item for that database to run a backup and or restore. So if I come up here, the first thing I would do would be create a new backup configuration. And because of this UI here, this makes it really easy to create configurations of backups of specific databases that you would like to make copies of. And again, these are application consistent, so we're actually going to quiesce the SQL writer, make a call to the array, create the array-based snapshot, and then make a call and unquiesce the writer. So it keeps everything online. It basically will pause the writes coming in order to flush out the buffers, create that that snapshot, and then kind of carry on like it should. The real cool thing about this is just about any task you do in here takes about 45 seconds. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter if we're doing an app consistent snapshot of a terabyte database or a 10 terabyte database. It's really going to take about 45 seconds. And that's with all the pauses in there to quiesce the writer, check that it's quiesced, make a call to the array, and do all the checks in a timely fashion. So the first thing you would do would actually be to give it a name and just a prod backup, and then you'd select the computer that you wanted to use, and then when you select that computer, it's going to build out a list of databases. Now the first time you go around this, you'd want to make the software aware of all of the computers in your environment and the flash array, and in the other video I kind of dive into that a little bit more. But here ADC is this local host here, and as I can see, I've got prod database, I've got the flash array 1 listed, and I hit save, and it's going to save that configuration out there. So it's going to go ahead and save this configuration about this backup. It's a full backup. It's for the prod database, and it's going to keep this information about this configuration out here in this C users administrator app data roaming metadata location. I could have selected a different location. I'm logged in as administrator, which is why it defaulted there. So now I can actually come in here, click backup, and select one of these configs that I've got in here. And again, I can see that the database is going to be backed up, that it's on this flash array, that it is full, and I can actually view the PowerShell script call. So this I can actually copy to clipboard, and then I can actually run that. Or I can run in here and click back up, and again what's going to take place is it's going to check that I've got all the right versions of the extension installed. Then it's going to communicate to the SQL writer, it's going to quiesce it, it's going to communicate back to the array, it's going to take a snapshot, which is then VSS enabled, and then it's actually going to make a call back to the SQL writer to unquiesce and carry on. And now that snapshot that exists on the array is in fact application consistent. And again, this normally takes about 45 seconds. If you look down at the bottom, you can see the little bar going across. And then once it's complete, it'll come back and it'll let me know that the backup's complete. So backup successfully completed. If I hit cancel, I can click on this and go to backup history. I can also do it from right here from this database as well. Right click, go to pure storage, see the restore backup history, and list all the points in time here that I've actually created a backup of this database. I can see which ones have succeeded successfully, that they're all full, and which particular point in time. So I can see this latest one at 2:15. As I can see, it's 2:15. This is the backup that I just took. Now, if I want to, what I can do is actually select this point in time, click mount. It'll ask me which computer. If I select ADC, it's going to build a list of mount drives that are available in this host. And then once it populates, I can select, which drive I'd like to have it mounted. And again, if I click View PowerShell, it's going to show me, and I can copy this to the clipboard and I can run it in that way. So I could go ahead and mount this, but I've actually got one mounted, and you can see I've got a copy of this database mounted in my prod training. So this is the prod database up here. This is prod training that's mounted on the E drive, and it is a snapshot off of the array. And again, with pure storage, the snapshots don't take up any space until you start writing to them. And those snapshots are actually converted into a volume. And again, it still doesn't take any space, and they're instant clones of those snapshots. So what I can do is, let me go ahead and cancel this. Now that I've got this database here running, I've got prod and I've got prod training. And if I expand and let you see the tables here, I've got the same tables here. So this database has been refreshed recently. But if I go up here and I say create a new table, go ahead and just save it as table 5. And I'll do the old refresh up here. And I can see now that I've got table 5. And of course, my training database, my copy of prod that's running for my training instance, doesn't have that table, of course. So I've got the commands here. I just kind of copied and pasted them into Notepad here. And this is that command, if you'll recall, when I hit the backup and hit View PowerShell, and this showed me this backup command. So this is the PowerShell command for our pure storage backup right here to create the application consistent backup. And all I have to do is make this call and then specify which config that I want to use. Because I created this config, prod BKP, it's got all of the information about that config, the database, the specific computer, and the specific array that this database is running on. So now when I make that call, I'll make another copy of the database. The next thing I've got right down here is actually what this is this is a command to stop this database right here. And as you can see, it's actually running the command that's in this stop SQL right here. And if I went and looked at the contents of that, you can see that it's just an alter database to set that specific database prod training to offline. And there's also one here for starting it so that I can automate all of this. And I can do all of this manually, but I can have it in this PowerShell script and then just kick it off anytime I want. So what I'll do is I'll run through it, step by step so you can actually see the commands. So we just did a backup a moment ago, and if I wanted to, I could run another one. But I'll go ahead and actually now run the command. So there, I just ran the command to run that stop SQL query. So that's going to stop that database that I've specified in here, prod-training, because that's the one I want to refresh. So if I come down here and hit the refresh, I can see now that that database is offline. So the next thing I'd want to do is, because that other snapshot is still mounted, the database is stopped, but now I want to go and unmount that database that's running. So to do that, I have to figure out which one I've got running. So I've got this command here called get backup history, and I'm looking for the one that I've got mounted. And then I'll basically put that in a variable, and then I'll call it from this dismount command. So if I go ahead and run this one, let me copy it, make sure I got the whole thing. It's a pretty long line there. So I think I've got it now. Let me just make sure here. Yeah. So I'll Control C, come over here. I'll just paste this command in here. It's basically just setting this variable to the mounted backup that's currently out there. Now what I'll do is I'll run a command to dismount it. I'll just go to here so you can see everything. Control V. And then this is going to take a moment, but what this is going to do is it's going to go out there, find that E drive. If I go over here to this PC, you can see that the E drive is currently mounted, but this script is actually going to go out and unmount it and basically remove it from the arrays, provisioning towards this host, and then it'll come back, scan the bus, and clean everything up. And again, this normally takes about 45 seconds to do, and when it completes, you'll see that it's dismounted and it completed successfully. These outputs right here this is us ensuring that we've got the right versions installed. So you can see we've successfully dismounted drive E from that snapshot, and it'll kind of clean up after itself. And if I go over here, I can see now that the E drive is gone, and I can see that it finished successfully. The next thing I'd want to do is say, well, what's the latest backup? So I'd want to set this variable and get the very latest backup. So I'll run that command, and all that's going to do is get a history of all the backups, and it'll get the latest one for me, because that's what I would want to mount, is the most latest version, and refresh this training database with the latest version of prod. So now I'll run this command, and as you can see, I referenced that variable right there. So I'll run this mount command here. I'll go ahead and just go to there. Run it. Now what's going to happen, it's actually going to do all of these tasks for you. It's actually going to connect back to the array. It's going to take that snapshot, that VSS snapshot from the latest copy that was made, clone it into a volume, present it to this host, scan the bus, and it's going to mount it to the drive letter E, because that's where I've got this prod training running. So I want to be able to refresh that. So I had to stop it, unmount it, find out what the latest copy was, mount it back as the E drive, and then once that comes back successfully, which it should do, and again, it takes about 45 seconds, but once it comes back successfully, the next thing I'll want to do is actually invoke this SQL command to restart that database. So I'll copy that, I'll go over here, I can see that it successfully completed. I hit Control V, I run that command to start the prod training. I come back over here, I do a refresh. I can see now that prod training is running. I come over here and expand this. I come over to the tables, and now I can actually see that table 5 is there. So it was a quick, easy way to automate the refreshing of this database. I don't have to go through exports, imports, backup, recovery, that type of thing. And the real cool deal is that because it is a PowerShell command, I can actually just run a PowerShell script and do all of this. So right now, if I come over and I create one more table that of course the other database isn't going to have, I'll just create one more real quick. Go ahead and save it. We'll call it table 6. I'll do the refresh. We can see that the table is there. And then what I'll do is I actually have these commands copied into this refresh over here, where I kick off and write some stuff to the host so we can see what it's doing. So if I come down here, I'll clear the screen. I've got nothing more than that refresh PS script and those start and stops that basically start the database and offline the database. So I'll go ahead and run refresh, and you can see that it's kicking off a backup and asking app consistent snapshot of the database production, of the database prod. Go ahead and minimize these things and get them out of the way. So again, it takes roughly 45 seconds. So we'll let, at least for each one of the steps, especially the steps regarding creating the snapshots, making the snapshots of volume, present them to the host, unmounting the old copy of the database, and then remounting the latest copy. The other copies are still out there. They would be listed in the backup history. If I go up here to backup history, they're still going to be out there. So if I come back to the script, you can see that the backup job is complete. Then it's going to stop the prod training database. And, I can actually kind of follow along with this a little bit. If I come over here and refresh. Oops, where'd it go? Oh, I've got this window open. Close that. Come over here and I can refresh. And I can see that database is offline. Let's see where it's at. So it just dismounted the E drive. So now the E drive is gone. And the next step will be finding out what the latest backup is, the one that we just took, as we kick this off. And this refresh can be scheduled. So this PowerShell script, as simple as it is, can be put as a scheduled task to run, every night at a specific time. And I can easily refresh this prod training database or whichever database I'd like to refresh. Easily, really quick. You can see this just takes a couple of minutes to do. It mounted the latest one. It's just about got it all finished. And then once it's mounted, then it's actually going to start the database. And we should see table 6 in there. So we should see, there's the E drive just popped up. And it started the latest copy of the database. So if I come over here and do a refresh, there's prod training up and running. I expand on the tables and I can see table 6. So again, this is leveraging app consistent snapshots on the pure array. It's easy to automate this. Of course, I can do manual ad hoc ones when I'd like, just by simply coming in here and running the backup. I can come to the backup history, select whichever point in time that I'd like to go to, and I can mount it. I can remove the history of a particular one if I'd like. I can actually dismount this one, and all of it can be automated. And I've got the PowerShell scripts to do it. And if you don't have those handy, you can ask for them from me, or you can come in here and click View PowerShell Script. The only difference would be I've got a few variables in here to make a determination of what the last backup last backup copy is mounted and which one that I need to unmount. So just a couple variables in here, fairly straightforward. And as you can see, it's not very many lines. And you can edit this, set it as a backup job, a snapshot job, a task scheduled job, and do this very frequently. So if you have any questions, please reach out. That's it for now. Thanks.